Welcome to the Dust Up. Today we are going to be talking about Phil Collins, Ozzy Osbourne, David Bowie, and it has nothing really to do with them because we're really talking about the myth surrounding the Alamo. We had a conversation with Bryan Burrough, who wrote the book Forget the Alamo, The Rise and Fall of an American Myth, and it really comes down to Latinos, shocker, not getting a fair shake in Texas. Welcome to the Dust Up, everybody. Here we go.
Dust up, dust up, dust up. Ooh, dust up, dust up, dust up. Yeah.
All right, let's get started. So, welcome to the Dust Up. Today, I want to start off, and we'll get to our topic, which is Forget the Alamo. We have a great conversation with Bryan Burrough, who wrote Barbarians at the Gate, but he also wrote this book, Forget the Alamo, The Rise and Fall of an American Myth. But I want to start off talking to you about Phil Collins from Genesis. What do you know about Phil Collins? What Phil Collins songs do you know?
I Can Feel It Coming in the Night, whatever that song is. That's the one I know.
Brought Back, but Mike Tyson,
Yeah,
Wait
the drum
for
solo,
It,
every
Hangover.
Every one, if you're going to talk about a drum solo, that's the one you talk about. Air drums, you talk about
Sure.
Phil Collins.
So he's the drummer, lead singer for Genesis. He's got 7 number 1 hits, 14 top 10 hits. Susu Studio.
Susu Studio.
Right? And then he also...
First of all, he was also a lead singer who was a drummer.
Yes.
That's
you don't see
rare.
that a lot.
You don't see that?
No, you don't
Can
see
you name
that
another
a
one?
lot at all. I know the guy from Def Leppard has one arm.
Yeah, that does not make him a lead singer. No. Yeah.
Don Henley.
Don Henley.
He was a drummer?
He's a drummer in the Eagles, yeah.
Oh, shit.
All right, yeah.
One more night.
Just give me the... And Phil
More
Collins
night.
had a band and then was solo. I always loved dudes like
Yeah, and he was popping around. I mean, you talk about like 80s. He's got the mullet. He was in Miami Vice.
He also was balding, wasn't he?
Balding with
And
a little
still
bit
a
of a
stud.
mullet, right?
Yeah.
Like he's wearing the classic 80s sports coat with like a teal T-shirt underneath. You know, you hear all these stuff like Another Day in Paradise, Two Hearts. This guy won 8 Grammys. He wins an Oscar, but then it gets a little...
He won an Oscar for?
I don't know. He probably had one of his
Tarzan
songs.
soundtrack.
Tarzan soundtrack.
The
That's
Tarzan
right.
soundtrack?
Yeah, You'll Be in My
Jesus.
Heart. It's the ballad from this movie, yeah.
Talk about appropriation. What the fuck are we doing here? Phil Collins got to do the Tarzan soundtrack?
But then it gets a
Drummer, very
little
rhythmic.
funky when his ex-wife, Orianne, they get divorced in 2008.
Wait a minute. Is her name Ian or Orianne?
I think it's Orianne.
I didn't know if you meant like his wife or...
Ian. No,
Ian.
Orianne is her name.
Yeah.
They get to, listen to this. The largest settlement in a British celebrity divorce. How much money do you think she gets?
Largest settlement? I mean, I don't know. What year are we talking here? Is it the 80s?
I think it's 2008.
Oh, 2008. I'm guessing Phil Collins worth $200 million, so maybe she's getting like, what, $80 million?
47 million bucks. And Collins files for divorce. She's secretly married to a man. They elope. They tie the knot at Graceland. I think at some point he's living in his guest house above the garage at his own house while she's in the house. It's weird. But it even gets weirder because Phil Collins, and this is why we're bringing him into this, is the largest collector of Alamo memorabilia in the world. And
so weird.
Talking to Bryan, we're realizing that most of it is probably fake. But you know what else is fake? is the whole myth
Mystique around the Alamo.
of the Alamo. I'm going to bring another singer into it.
Who?
Ozzy Osbourne.
Okay.
Pisses on the Alamo.
Because he knows the story?
I think so.
Or is he
I
just
mean,
trying to be a stunt? Everything
Maybe,
that dude did was
maybe,
a stunt.
He
yeah.
was a full-blown alcoholic. So
Oh, so he's drunk at the Alamo and he pissed.
So wait a minute, the guy was
Wearing-
walking home and took a leak and all of a sudden it became a big...
I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was wearing a dress and sneakers and drunkenly peed on an old building. Turned out it was the Alamo.
Do you want to talk more about any of the stuff Phil Collins had, or should we...
Sure. I mean,
Because it's so weird. He's British. Do you know what I mean?
it's in 2014. He gives a 430-piece collection of this memorabilia to Texas. But the only stipulation being that they had to create a museum. So
Why does he care this much?
I don't know. It's a fucking weird thing to start
It's
getting
the
into.
dumbest thing I've ever heard.
But that's a sign, like, when you have too much fucking money. Like, he was making, like,
What do you mean too much? He's living in a guest house above his wife's house.
this is before that. Anyway, I guess he's obsessed since childhood. And
If there's anything you could collect, memorabilia from something, is there anything that
well,
would...
I'm a huge 49er fan. So I could see myself having Golden State Warrior and 49er memorabilia because I'm a big sports fan. So
Yeah.
I could see myself, in a room maybe dedicated to watching games with friends in a little bar, and maybe I have some older jerseys signed.
Do
and
you
stuff
have
like
any
that.
historical pieces of things at your home?
I have some old 49er stuff. So
Okay.
I have some of that stuff. I have some signed things.
I have a ticket stub from Theodore Roosevelt
Oh,
at like a ball at Boston Garden. I have a ticket stub.
cool.
Yeah. Just thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
Got
Where'd
a-
you get that?
I got it at an antique store.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
how much did it run you?
It was like $4.
Ah,
I just like $4.
how do you know it's real?
I mean, it's torn. It might not be real, but then I just kept a bunch of stuff from my grandfather and stuff like that, like
Yeah.
his golf balls. I have, and like I have them in the
Oh,
living
sure.
room.
We got a bunch of those things.
All right, just don't belittle what I have.
No, but my, from my grandfather's machete story, I think my brother has the machete.
I heard over the mantle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, cool vibe. All right.
Anyway, so this is where it gets really fucking weird, is that why does Phil Collins have all of this stuff? He believes that he is reincarnated.
That's right.
From one of the defenders of the Alamo. We're going to talk about the defense of the Alamo and the myth that goes along with it. But you got to read some of the comments on YouTube. They're hilarious. So you can go Google Phil Collins, and then you watch him talking about his memorabilia. But then the people, and again, knowing that like 60% of this shit is fake, you read some of these comments and everybody's like, oh, he's a national treasure. Well, he's British. And God bless Phil Collins. And he's a remarkable man and shit like that. He's just a fucking idiot. He thinks he's reincarnated from a defender of the Alamo. And
Crazy. But at the same time, what if he is?
listen, it's his money. He can do whatever the fuck he wants with it. But I think he blew it on a lot of fake shit. And I think also he really is unaware of this story. And clearly he has not read Bryan Burrough's book.
Okay.
Forget the Alamo.
Can I tell you something? You know my children,
Yes.
right? My ex-wife went to a psychic recently, or was at a retreat, and there was someone who like could read. I'm not sure. I don't know the whole story. I just know from what my kids. And this person, this psychic, told my ex what my kids were before they were who they are now.
What were they?
Well, she said my son was a monk,
Ooh.
which my son meditates by himself before school the other day. My son tells me that I don't have to overreact to things. He's one of the most calm human beings you're ever going to meet in your life.
Super cool.
And you know my daughter, who's a little bit of she's a little on the other side.
Sass.
And this woman said that she was murdered in a revolt, like standing up for something.
What the fuck?
So let's look at it.
But this psychic tell your daughter that she was murdered in a revolt, or
No.
she's just telling the wife?
Told my ex.
Ex.
Yeah. That's where she, in a previous life, she was like standing up for something and was murdered in, and so how far off is Phil Collins from that? I think the more important issue is let's get into the Alamo.
Sure.
Okay. So I think the first thing we need to know is I imagine everybody out there knows somebody from Texas. And if you know anyone from Texas, they think everything in Texas.
Don't mess with Texas.
Don't mess with Texas toast. Do you know what a Texas tee is in golf?
What?
I know you haven't been around golf as long as I have. So you have short tee for like par threes, and then you have like this is like your normal
Long,
tee.
bigger.
A Texas tee is like this big.
Ridiculous.
It's kind of like a joke, but people have it. Everything in Texas is bigger. We all know that Texas at one point was its own country, essentially.
Well,
Especially-
Texas was filled with, you have to imagine, at the time, it's filled with scoundrels. It's Tejanos, and
it was kind of like, I wouldn't say a wasteland, but it was like where you could go for a second chance. Would you say it that way?
I mean, also the United States at that time is a country of people fleeing and second chances. So
Yeah.
is the people who need a
Second chance
fourth chance
yeah.
at running from trouble. So it's filled with guys like Davy Crockett, Jim Bowie of the Bowie Knife,
Yes.
and this W.B. Travis and
Buck Travis.
yeah, all these dudes who are not good people. Jim Bowie,
Now, these people all found themselves at the Alamo, around the Alamo.
around the same time in Texas. So Jim Bowie is a slave trader and a swindler.
Listen,
but
did you really need to throw in swindler if
Swindler.
he was a slave trader?
a lot of people were slave traders. I'm just saying that this
point.
guy is like amongst slave traders doesn't have a good rep. And so
Could you imagine being the bottom of the barrel in slave trade?
So these Alamo patriots that we're talking about are mostly slave owners. And that's what this really came down to, because Mexico and Mexicans.
Exactly. It wasn't just happening in the United States. It was also happening in Mexico.
No, Mexico
It was still happening.
was still
Adam.
happening, but they abolished slavery well before the United States, and they didn't want anything to do with slaves.
But
so
it
that's
came
what
back.
this comes down to.
But then when they had this war, they needed to. It was still torn in Mexico. Am I wrong?
I think you are wrong.
Can we check that out? Can we fact check that?
Well, it's a good thing we have a fact checker. Ben, as always, with us.
Outlawed in 1837 in Mexico.
And
Mexico was very early in banishing slavery.
And when was the battle at the Alamo? It was very close. No,
1836.
36.
1836. They abolished it in 1837.
That's what the whole thing is.
I
over,
understand, but what
Yeah.
I'm saying is they were still having conflict in Mexico about whether or not to have slavery.
though. So really what my point is that there's everybody in Texas at that time, or a lot of people that it's not a good group of folks.
Yeah, we wouldn't say they're the worst of the worst, but these are people who try to get away with certain things and couldn't.
They're trying to flee from debts. Then also, and this is this is the most criminal part about the whole thing for me, and being Latino, these Tejano people take them in.
Mm-hmm.
They're cool with them.
Yeah.
They're intermingling to the point, but these people are a lot of assholes.
Because Davy Crockett was a congressman in D.C., and then he got banished, or he goes, "Well, what was his famous line? Give me Texas or give me something else." Like he's like, "I'm going to go to one of two places he could go," and Texas was the one he ended up at.
Who's this?
Davy Crockett.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Davy Crockett is not, Davy Crockett. All these guys
frontier,
celebrated, but again, they're not great people.
Okay, so I think maybe what our thesis statement here is that Texas, all you ever hear about is remember the Alamo, but they lost that battle. That battle was a loss.
Yeah, I think Davy Crockett said you can go to hell, but I'm going to Texas.
Gotcha. Because that was the only place he could go.
So again, characters, and these are the holy trinity of the players. We've got Davy Crockett, lost his job in Congress, and now he's seeking a new life, stumbles into this battle, gets killed. Jim Bowie, he's framed as this cool guy, like Steve McQueen type, but he's chased by federal authorities for land frauds.
You know why he's also like a Steve McQueen type? Because he's known for being an unbelievable knife fighter.
Yeah.
Because in New Orleans, he got in. Do you know how many knife fights he got in? He got one. He got one, and he won.
Yeah.
But that's like back then. That was like what you could be known for.
You just have a rep.
Just like what's his face there? From Tombstone, who's the sheriff, that like the most famous sheriff in history?
Wyatt Earp.
Wyatt Earp. That dude, he never had to kill anybody until the OK Corral. I think he killed one dude.
And then we've got William Travis, who is fleeing debts. He's a lawyer from Alabama. He's one of the loudest voices against the Mexican government. And then meanwhile, you have Stephen Austin, who is curating a group of 300 families to get along with the Mexican government trying to do this the right way. So we're talking about colonization in Texas, and it's Mexico was only able to get these small towns started. So Mexican and the Mexican government, they're kind of distanced from Texas, and it makes it easier for them to sort of give up on a little bit because it's not something that they can really control at this point.
What's that?
Just Texas in general. Like it's lawless.
It is, and there's more than, they're all just trying to get ownership of this because it's its own thing. U.S. is its own thing. Mexico's its own thing.
So the Americans that did come, they want to grow cotton, and the Mexicans had never tried to do that.
Well, the Mexicans had tried to do so many things in Texas, and they were not successful with anything, correct?
Yeah.
As far as, okay.
What were they trying to do?
I was going to say gardening, but that doesn't say agriculture.
They were just trying. We just want to trim the hedges. We just want to get to eventually what we're going to do later on.
They didn't have any leaf blowers then.
Yeah. So it's all fucked up. And I guess the myth is that there were 0 survivors, and almost all the Texans died, but they just didn't acknowledge that the Mexicans.
Do you know how long the battle lasted?
It's quick.
First of all, this Mexican army traveled like hundreds of miles. They went through a storm, winters. A lot of them travel with their families because back then you would travel with your families. Their families dying along the way. They were like, they busted their ass. Santa Anna, who let him in there, by the way, used to be this dude was president of Mexico.
You love Santa Anna.
I'm a big fan of this cat. Santa Anna. Let me just tell you about this dude. He was president for 12 years, different terms. Everyone was sick of him. They finally said, get the fuck out of here. They kicked him out of Mexico. He goes, all right, goes to Cuba. He's just probably down in Cuba sipping rum. Then the U.S. goes to him and they go find him in Cuba. They go, listen, we're trying to figure shit out with Mexico. Will you come back and help us like negotiate and get like an agreement? He's like, I got you. They bring him back. They send him to Mexico. He gets to Mexico. He goes, what up? Let's go take down Texas.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine him in Cuba also? Just like he's smoking a cigar. He's drinking some rum. He's got chicks. And then the American government says, hey, we need your help. And he goes, hold my drink.
I'll be back with Mexico. I'll be president again.
Yeah.
But I just think it's.
And then he's got wins named after him.
He's got wins named after him. But so he leads this army up, and his whole thing was, we're taking no prisoners. They get there. They start what they call the siege, right, where they're surrounding the Alamo. Now, it said that there's about 200, I guess you could call them soldiers, inside the Alamo.
Ragtag group of fuck-ups.
Some of them had their family members in there. They had kids in there. There were wives in there. And so they start by now, they had tons of weapons there, but like they had like a cannon, right? I think it was called a 16-pounder or an 18-pounder. That's what they would call these cannons. To load one, to actually load, fire, and get one to work takes 9 dudes. They had 28 of them. They didn't have enough people to man all these cannons.
Sure.
And tons of them were not even trained. This is where I think it comes into, Al, okay?
Because we were talking about, like, what is the myth of the Alamo and then what actually happened. Yes.
So I think where the myth can derive from that, like, it was this big battle that they won and they were so brave, is you have all these guys that were not trained, didn't know anything, and they did everything they could to withstand this 3,000 to 4,000 army coming up from Mexico.
The only way they survived was because of the Tejano people that helped them out.
But they didn't survive.
No. The only way that they were the Tejano people, again, were there.
And fighting alongside them.
Alongside of them.
100%.
They would not even they don't have any chance at all.
No. And the whole fight lasted, I think, 30 to 90 minutes.
No, it was 13 days.
Well, the siege.
Okay.
They came in and they're sieging and they're throwing, like, they first start by like shooting, like, not bombs, but like shooting these things over the fort, and then shrapnel comes down on top. So, like, they're sieging. But before they, like, made the attack where they're running up to the Alamo, where, you know, you see all those pictures of, like, them just shooting guns down at all these people attacking. They have the bayonets. Like, that group of people that Santa Anna used, by the way, he was just using them as, like, you know, yeah, you're going to die. I think 400 Mexicans died total.
So the Texas government, to this day, it's being taught in schools, would have people believe that it was this heroic sort of last stand by patriots.
By patriots. That's the key thing, I think. And I appreciate how it's personal to you, don't you feel like?
Well, again, what they did afterwards with these Tejanos, and again, the people that fought alongside them, is that they banned them from intermixing with their women. Mm-hmm. And then, which you can ban us all you want, we're going to mix with your women.
And you're going to impregnate them, too.
Yeah. And so then they kick them out of there.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
After the win.
Yes.
After like helping protect, it's just insanity. Because what happens is it lasts 30, 90 minutes when they actually make the attack. They kick the shit, they kill everybody. Then they move on. They have another battle. The Mexicans, they dominate, beat everybody. Then they go to the next battle, and it's at that battle that this army that's been through hell and back just to get to the Alamo, win that one, then they fight another one. Now they got to fight this other one, which the U.S. or Texas wins because they're all going, remember the Alamo. That's what they're yelling out, remember the Alamo. And then they're also yelling out, remember, like, I can't remember what that second battle was after the Alamo. And that's where everyone keeps saying, remember the Alamo, remember the Alamo. But the only reason they were saying that is because they were saying, hey, remember how everyone died and everyone got crushed back there? We need to remember that. And it's like, you know, it's like when the Warriors got into the playing game this year. They're like, hey, remember when we... And then but it didn't work out so well for them.
So why, to this day, is this myth being perpetuated to the point where...
Why are we glorifying Davy Crockett?
And Bowie and
all
Travis,
of them, yeah.
Who are all these assholes. And
David Bowie took his name from that knife because David Bowie's real name is David Jones, and Davy Jones was in the Monkees and already existed.
Oh, wow.
First of all, can we just talk? This is a music episode. You got Phil Collins. You got Kiss.
No.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Same thing.
Yeah, no, shut up.
Ozzy Osbourne. Then you got David Bowie. And then he just threw out the Monkees at us.
Davy Jones.
Who I prefer over the Beatles, to be honest.
Shut up.
I'm kidding. That's crazy. Yeah, and he got a knife named after him.
So they are currently, and this is all thanks to Brian, who tells us this, but they are currently trying to renovate this place. They're trying to take a bar, that eminent domain from a Mexican owner, which is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's a tourist trap, and it also, guess what? A lot of Latino kids in school feel horrible because...
This is the big thing. This is the thing that only matters to me. I don't care that it's a tourist trap because people want to go visit shit.
To Pier 39, and they want to go to... In Boston, of course, you know this.
Yeah, they want to go to the Old North Church. But the Old North Church is an amazing thing that happened. They want to do the Freedom Trail. They want to go to Plymouth Rock, which is not that impressive. They want to do all those things. But Do you want say exactly why these Latino kids that go there?
Because it's being taught in schools with them in the classroom that they're being billed as the villains in all of this, when the truth of the matter is that a lot of the original Tejano people, the original Latino Texans, are fighting side by side to protect that land.
Yeah, it wasn't just a bunch of
Mexicans.
white dudes in the Alamo.
Yes. And so that is not something that's ever being mentioned. Now, it's like the fact that, again, there's all this anti-woke, stuff going on. People hate the fact that people are trying to go after the
Take down statues and...
Yeah, but again, like, wouldn't you want the real history? I don't understand anybody who wouldn't want the facts.
Sure.
I want the facts and the real all the time.
100.
I just don't understand that.
So
wanting to perpetuate this myth that the
myth
what?
That it was just all white men, and they
dying heroically.
They died heroically.
Yeah.
When the fact of the matter is, Mexican and Latino people had been in that area for hundreds of years. Yes, and had been side by side with, whites or
working in harmony, even though these most of these people were scoundrels. Yes.
And then after they lose at the Alamo, and then they lose the next battle, and then they finally win, and then they get Mexico out.
They kick all the people that helped them out.
Then all those people who'd been there for like 300 years, they're like, yeah, you're gone too. You're just one of them.
Ridiculous.
Insanity.
Yeah.
So that is the myth. The myth is that they are just saying that this is a huge win. White people and Latino kids, yeah, that would just feel terrible. You're growing up in Texas, and then you go to you're hearing how great this is, and then you get there and you find out, or you've been hearing that you're shit.
So what's interesting, and this is something that we talked to Bryan about, is that the greatest irony is that Mexico, the whole reason for this, is trying to prevent illegal immigrants from coming onto their land and taking their land.
That's insane.
And that's why this all ensues. So in Mexico in 1830 was trying to stop this influx of Americans, and they feared that they were going to lose control. So Bryan tells us, like, the Mexican government was doing everything they could to stop immigrants, and the only thing missing was them trying to build a wall.
Yeah. Wouldn't that have been amazing?
Yeah. So the myth was always to keep Tejanos down and say that they killed Davy Crockett, when in fact that they were their allies.
And Davy Crockett was captured. There are rumors or debate that he was captured and begged for his life, and then Santa Ana was like, "Yeah, we don't keep captures, bro," and they just killed him.
Yep.
Because they burned everybody.
Then they're forcibly ejected, and it's like ethnic cleansing that's going on in Texas, which again is predominantly, now you look at what's going on in Texas, trying to keep, with Greg Abbott militarizing the border, and it's kind of insane that Mexico lost the fight to illegal immigrants who just took over the entire thing.
Yeah.
Bananas.
I wonder how many other stories, like, because where I grew up, it was just like white on white, dude. You know what I mean? It was like the British are coming. That was Paul Revere. You know what I mean? You know that story, one if by land, two if by sea. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's ingrained in you because you're in Massachusetts, and this is like, and my friend lived across the street from the Old North Church, and people would come visit there, and there's a graveyard. What do you call it? You call it a graveyard? What do you call a graveyard?
What do you call a graveyard?
Yeah.
A graveyard.
Yeah, what's the other word for it?
Cemetery.
Cemetery, thank you.
Sure.
There's a cemetery. Don't sure me.
I
asked you.
Just I don't understand the question.
I wanted. So down the street from my buddy's house, he had this cemetery, and on the gravestones are bullet holes from where the British would take target practice. That's insanity. But we're talking. It doesn't come with the audacity of what this comes with and what they're trying to cover up.
What's interesting,
Or at least take credit for
what Bryan was also telling us is, so they're about to do events for the book, Forget the Alamo, and they're shut down. So they're still like trying to actively suppress this real story. And Bryan and his co-authors here are being prevented. And basically, Bryan said they were attacked in Texas for a liberal take on Texas history. It's, it's kind of insane. They were,
Have you ever been to a reenactment?
I have in Boston.
Really? Where'd
Yeah.
you go to? The
It
Battle
was
of
the Tea
Lexington
Party
and Concord?
thing with like
Okay.
there was the Boston Tea Party where they dumped all the tea over the side, and they let you dump the tea over.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was with the girls when they were touring colleges with the volleyball team. The whole volleyball team went and we dumped the tea over the side.
Wild. Did you go on the Constitution? Old Ironsides?
I don't know.
Okay. Either way, could you imagine if they did a reenactment of this?
Oh Jesus! Yeah.
You couldn't. They couldn't do it because then they'd be like, you're going to make all white dudes? You wouldn't be able to do that.
No. They couldn't do it.
I think that'd be hilarious. They try to do it and they just have all these different guys. Because every time you just picture Davy Crockett, you just picture that. I mean, that's just ingrained in our head, isn't it? From kids, is like that raccoon hat that he would wear, and he was just like a man of the people. Bullshit, bro.
It's crazy.
It's all craziness. You didn't have any of those kind of trips you'd take up in San Francisco?
I'd never been to Alcatraz, and I've never walked across the Golden Gate Bridge. Being from San Francisco, I just didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
We would go hang out and have this thing called Friday Afternoon Club in high school down in the Presidio in old bunkers, and we'd have kegs in old bunkers.
That doesn't sound like the same thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about going on field trips. And you're
Yeah.
like, no, you guys would just
We
go drink kegs? In what year?
In bunkers in high school, like junior and senior year.
Crazy.
I think it was like sophomore and junior year that the seniors we had, even when I was a freshman, we had seniors that were a lot cooler. I remember being a freshman and going into Chinatown, and so they would rent out a Chinese restaurant, and that's where we'd have our parties. Like somebody would throw a party in there, and it would be all underage kids drinking beer in a shut-down Chinese restaurant on Saturday night at like 10 p.m.
God. That is wild.
It's cool.
Yeah, it's way cool, man. Look at you.
There's like a band downstairs and like the whole thing. It was rad.
We didn't do that. What we would do is, and this is kind of leads to the same thing of like what you expect something to be. We would hear, like, we found out about this guy who lived in this mansion in Massachusetts, and he went crazy, and he came home and he killed his kids, and then he killed his
What?
Yeah, and then he killed his maid and his wife. So like, there's this mansion like you could go to, and like we pull up to it, and like there's a gate, and it's got like 666 written on the gate, like, you know, and we're like, all right, let's go. And we all went in and we walked down this like super long driveway. I mean, at least in my memories, it was super long, and we were all so scared.
Terrified.
We get up to the house, it's burned down. It's all that's there is the foundation. The house is burned down. It's up on this like cliff with this huge yard. And then there was like so we're all like, all right, let's just get out of here. And we're walking back, and there's like a garage, you know, the garage was still there. And we walked by the garage, and on the side of the garage, guess what was there?
What?
4 gravestones.
Oh.
From the fucking everyone that was killed, I guess. And my boy was like, let's go get a shovel. And we were like, let's get out of here. But it kind of had that same mystique of you want something to be there because we wanted to go through that house. But it turns out it was just burned to the ground.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's like, you know, when you're a little kid, and especially, you know, back when we were growing up, you got a single mom, you were unattended, you know, both my parents worked, and like we could do whatever we want. We were out in the streets. There was on Lake Street, right, Ben, the guy who was the Church of Satan, the Antoine LaVey.
Yeah, out in the 20s, on
Yeah,
Lake.
that was his house, and so you'd go by that and like look over there and say Antoine LaVey. I was living in there.
Crazy.
So, yeah, you'd like be running by that place.
See,
You're in the park.
Me being out and about, like I remember I used to come home from school like 3rd grade, no one was home. Third grade. My son's in fourth grade. I can't even imagine. I mean, I leave him at home, but
same exact thing for us.
But you were in San Francisco, bro. I was in a small little town. San Francisco is a much bigger difference than Stoneham,
Oh my
Mass.
God, we'd come home. We'd take the streetcar 45 minutes each way and then go home, and both parents, again, worked. You let yourself in. You had a key. You made yourself a snack. You watched some, Our Gang or whatever was on. And
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I love it. What do you think? You think we encapsulated everything
I think we covered
wanted to talk
it.
about
I
here?
think, a large part of the myth is perpetuated by a movie with John Wayne. And again, what happened in Texas, obviously there's this myth that these Texans are the egos on these Texans, again, that everything is, bigger and better. And, it's like this, but foundation of Texas is, like slavery and criminal behavior. So quit acting like you're so great, and acknowledge the fact that we all come from scoundrels. I mean, the fact that they want to, glorify what they were doing there and the heroic last stand by this group, it's just not what happened. And the fact that, again, it's all built on slavery and then they're kicking these people out, it's just it's not good. And it's okay for you acknowledge it. It's not you. And I don't understand why people have to glorify all of the criminal past of our forefathers.
Which, by the way, take Pete Rose. Do you think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame?
I do, actually.
I do too.
Yeah.
He should be in, and just have a thing that says, yeah, he bet on. So it could be the Alamo can still stand there, just have the correct story. But by the way, one of the podcasts I listen to, the guy who gave all the information works at the Alamo. Like, he works there. He's a historian there, and he wasn't saying anything outside of the truth. It's not even the people at the Alamo or around it. It's the people that are like
politicians in this anti-liberal, anti-woke movement.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's like a liberal take. No, it's just actually what happened.
It's just what happened. You're still there. You're still Texas, but you know.
And also, Sam Houston, the Battle of the Alamo would not have taken place if that gang had followed Sam Houston's orders to blow up the fort and leave San Antonio.
Yeah, but San Antonio had too much water going through it. You know what I mean? That's why San Antonio was important. It was tiny. It wasn't anything big, but they had water, and that's why it was an important get.
Yeah, but he wanted to abandon the place. So they're even like, again,
Idiot.
Austin was trying to do the right thing. Houston was like, get out of there. He wrote the governor at that time just to blow the whole place up, demolish it. And so, again, like, obviously any historian knows that this whole thing is not accurate. So maybe, again, I always do hope that future generations of folks just come to their senses and quit trying to perpetuate these
And if older
fables.
Generations can understand that this doesn't define you, it doesn't.
Not at all.
They did still stand. Just acknowledge the people that are there that were standing.
You weren't there. You didn't do it.
You didn't do it.
I don't even understand the mentality. I don't get it at all.
Yeah.
Tell me the real story.
Well, I mean, you'll still root for your 49ers, or like you never know, like, you know what I mean?
I don't love what happened with the Colin Kaepernick situation.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point.
I do not like it.
No.
I still root for that team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think
You
that
had a
guy
clouded
even
past.
and I'm not going to stop watching the NFL
Right.
because I love it.
Even though they
I watched
cast
the
him
draft.
aside and
yeah, it was
made
just
him
horrible that guy didn't get to play. Now, did I think he was good? No, because I would sit in those stands with my son, who was really young at the time. I'd go, he's going to run, he's going to throw, he's going to run, he's going to throw, and I was right 100% of the time.
Was that on coaching, or are you saying those were pocket decisions?
He had a tell, and so after a while, when the book was out on him, you could tell exactly what he was going to do.
Yeah, but I don't think he had a chance to prove your theory right or wrong. He got you guys to a Super Bowl.
Oh, totally.
For Alex Smith. He stepped in, took you to
He-
Super Bowl, and then the next year what happened?
I'm just telling you, he got to tell. I think we went 8-8.
The year after?
Yes.
And did he start the whole season?
He was predictable. And so that's where he was just going downhill. And it's like, so anyway, he should not have been kicked out of the NFL. My point is, like, I am not acknowledging that he was
bad.
It was a bad look for the NFL, that they shouldn't have done that, but I'm still gonna.
That is a very interesting. It's a complete parallel to the
Roger Goodell, and especially how it was politicized, and with the national anthem that has no place in sports at all.
No, but the NFL rides on the back of blind patriotism.
So it was ridiculous. Like, again, national anthem. They play it before concerts. Do they play it before? They just don't. It's ridiculous that they play that. And again, I'm patriotic, but I don't think it has any place. So it's like, what are we doing?
I think it's interesting that we could tie it into your fandom of 49er football. Works.
Bananas. All right, that's it. Thank you for listening and watching.
As always, Jay Larson Comedy on social media, Facebook, Instagram, all of them. Al Madrigal on Facebook and TikTok. On TikTok, Al Madrigal Comedy. Follow the Dust Up Podcast on Twitter or /X. The Dust Up Pod on YouTube, and then the Dust Up the Dust Up at YouTube. You got them. You can get them. Give us a call at 925-727-3878, 925-727.
This is Dust Up.
Dust
Up.
Right in at the dustuppod@gmail.com.
That's it.
I'm Jay Larson.
I'm Madrigal.
Al Madrigal, and this is the Flat Trackers.